Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And if it's all right with the Minister, we'll go back and forth again for this next 10-minute segment. So I do just want to go back to that MSA report. I had a brief chance here in the last few minutes to have a look at that report. And so what I'm just piecing together then is the order of operations. So in April of 2017, notice to stakeholders RRO review went out from the MSA. And then, in addition to some other draft comments that had been received in around, I think, the third week of May, Bill 16 was introduced in the legislature May 23rd, 2017, and passed rapidly by June 1st. It received third reading in the Legislative Assembly. So then on June 30th, there was a draft report issued by the MSA, and the final report on July 31st. Why the rush? Why not wait until the final report that you asked for as it related to the RRO review was complete before passing legislation on the RRO cap?
Yeah, we actually announced the decision the previous November about the rate cap. So there was actually a lot of time in advance of the dates you're giving me there for that. So the MSA report was requested after the rate cap was announced. The purpose of the MSA study was to look at options for implementing and managing the rate cap. The policy work on the RRO rate cap was done before the government's announcement. The Department of Energy led that policy work with the input of advisors as appropriate. So, you know, we had announced that well early of those dates you're giving me there.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it just feels like it's out of order, right? That there's this report that talks about how, and frankly, as a legislator, it would have been nice, I think, to have the benefit of that final report as we debated the bill. And certainly there's some things in that report that perhaps would have influenced amendments we could have brought or changes we could have advocated for, because so the whole thing feels very much out of order. And I guess what I'm worried about is that ever since the specified gas emitters regulation was changed in June of 2015, that set in course a whole sequence of events that it seems like your department is just playing catch up and have come at this from a perspective of saying, well, we know our world is fixed in a certain way, and even if there's new information coming at us that may move us off of that worldview, we're just going to plow ahead. And my concern is that this is part of that pattern. And now here we are looking at $74 million for the regulated rate option just in this fiscal year. A best case scenario of $279 million of taxpayer dollars going out the door over the next 4 years at a time when we're having a hard time funding education, funding healthcare. So these are choices that are not net zero. And I think that's the real concern I have. And another, I guess, avenue I'd like to explore with you on that is just management and leadership at the MSA itself. So I've spent some time looking at the publicly available information on the MSA website. And I would just like, if you wouldn't mind, stepping through with me based on that publicly available information. The leadership of the MSA here over the last, say, 6-8 months. So Matt Ayers was MSA Market Surveillance Administrator from December 15th, 2017 to September 8th, December 2015, I believe, to September 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And then Doug Dahl, who I believe was the CFO when Mr. Ayers left, was MSA from September 8th until January 2nd. At which point Tudor Beattie took over from January 2nd. And the announcement at the time said his term was to end on July 31st, 2018. But on March 19th of this year, just recently, Wayne Taylor took over with the term to July 31st, 2018. Was there someone else in between Mr. Beattie and Mr. Taylor?
No, we had, we had some, I'm not privy to talk about the details of some of the people and why they left, but I can assure you we have an interim right now, and we're in an active process of getting a new a new MSA. So, you know, those are kind of HR issues that I'm not really privy to speak about. But there was always someone in charge along the way.
I don't doubt that there was. There's a strong governance structure and bylaws which would dictate that there would always, of course, be someone in charge. My concern is that this is another symptom of what appears to me to be some pretty substantial upheaval. I hope chaos is too strong a word, but I worry about that. We're at a time when we have some significant change going on within the electricity market. The Market Surveillance Administrator has a very important role to play in that whole ecosystem. And I'm very concerned that when I see this, and I certainly would not expect you to make any comment about any confidential human resource matter, of course. But when I look at something like this, it's a red flag, a real red flag about what may be going on within that organization. And I guess I would like you to know that we're aware of that, those challenges, and that Albertans should be, I think, concerned about that. And I guess my question to you is, what are you doing to ensure that there's stability within such an important organization within the electricity ecosystem in this province?
Well, first of all, I'd want to say, you know, people do come and go in positions, and these are highly specialized positions, so they are hard to recruit to, but we have an interim in place right now, and we are actively recruiting for that. I guess the other question I had for you is there a line item you're referring to, or is this just a general question about my leadership or our government, or I'm not sure where you're going with this.
So we've been through the Beauchesnes, and I you know,
this is about forward thinking.
That's fine, and you're not. I can't compel you to answer the questions, but what I do have an accountability as a member of the Legislative Assembly is to ensure that the management of all entities within the purview of your ministry is done in a way that is fiscally responsible, that from a governance perspective that we're asking these questions. And I can't compel you to answer them. I'd like you to.
I can assure you we're actively recruiting and interviewing right now, or will be, and we have an interim, a competent and capable interim in place, and we will be filling that position.
Right. So here's my question, because what you've said is that it's a highly specialized role. It absolutely is. This is an enormously complex area, and I certainly don't claim to be an expert. When I look at this, though, again, red flags. Are we willing to pay the fair value for someone with appropriate expertise to run such a highly complex area? Is that a challenge?
Yeah. So, you know, in the pay structure, that was an outside agency that provided those bands, and that wasn't part of our ministry.
So the amount we're willing, the compensation is not an issue here.
Yeah, go ahead, Colleen. Yeah, you've been involved.
So there was a process led by the Public Agency Secretariat to determine the applicable compensation ranges for these CEO positions. And they determined that they took into account all the factors that a professional compensation expert would take into account in reviewing those positions. So those pay grades have been established in accordance with the recommendations received.
And the Public Agency Secretariat, is that part of the ABC review? Is that where that comes from?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm having a hard time drawing any other conclusion that either we've got some significant internal turmoil here that causes people at senior levels to leave on a regular basis, and an inability to replace them with a qualified person for the long term, or we've set the pay grade too low. I mean, this is a highly, highly expert area, and if we want to attract the right kind of talent and something that is, you know, and I'm not talking about outrageous pay and perks, but I'm just saying, look, if the fair market for someone who has the skills required to do the job is more than we're willing to pay, I think we're going to have a hard time attracting the kind of person we need to do that job. Whether you kind of like it or not, if it's a highly expert position, I worry that we're saving pennies and costing ourselves dollars by not having the right sorts of people involved. It's a real concern.
Well, I can tell you we're recruiting right now, and we do have applications, so more to come. We have an interim in place, and we do have people.